What's up, guys? So today I'm going to build a plywood storage cart. The whole point of this is going to be to keep it budget friendly and simple. So whenever I decided to build a plywood storage cart, I first Googled just to see what kind of styles people have built and how they built them. But the more I looked, I started to realize they built very expensive plywood storage carts. And if I built one of those, I wouldn't have enough money to buy plywood for putting in the storage cart. So I decided to come up with my own simple idea and use some OSB, this is 1930 seconds, to make it out of, just to keep the budget low too, because it doesn't need to be anything special. Now, this OSB definitely be ready for some splinters. I decided to just make a very simple design. So I'm just going to do a cart. Ends up being 3 plywood sections. Put some casters on it. So your big piece of plywood will be able to go on this side. Small cut pieces, and then just added some extra storage for some lumber there. Really what I mocked it up for was actually to have a 2x8s here. But then I realized I have a ton of 2x6s just all over the shop. So I'm going to use 2x6s instead. But I will include the plans for this down below. So you can use 2x8s, 2x6s, you can use 2x10s. You can make it however wide you want. The concept adjusts really easily. And then to start, we're going to start with just making the base, which the base is very simple. It's just going to be, I'm going to grab a 2x6, 2x6, cut it down to somewhere around 12 inches. Then run a 2x6x8 to connect them to make the whole base. Then we'll cut out our sheets of plywood and we'll end up just screwing them all together. Like I said, I've got plenty of 2x6s, but we're going to find out if we can find any that are remotely straight. We found 2 that we're going to say are straight enough. To make the base, I got my 2 8-foot long 2x6s. Then I just grabbed some scrap 2x6s that I had, because these are going to be the ones that we're going to actually cut. The 8-foot pieces, they match the 8-foot piece of plywood already, so they won't need to be cut. So only what we got to do is cut these. We're going to have plywood, 2x6, plywood, 2x6, plywood. So, you know, these are going to be about 5.5 inches each. So that puts it at 11, and then you're adding 3/4, 3/4, 3/4. I know this is just 1932, but that's pretty dang close to 3/4. So I'm just going to add it like that. So then that'll bring us up to 13 1/4. So we'll just cut these. Just for a little tip, it's easy just to put your speed square down just so you can keep it straight, line it up, and then you can just run it along your speed square. We're going to do that just to get 2 of them. Put my markings on here for each of the quarter of plywood, just so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Now, so that'll be OSB, that'll be OSB, and then technically there will be OSB here, but I don't need to figure out that measurement, because if I line up 2x6 to that and the 2x6 to that, it'll automatically have our opening for it. I'm probably going to end up adding just a third. This ended up being a lot longer now that I'm seeing it. So we'll go and cut that. Just speed squaring this line just to bring it across the whole board. You always want to put your pencil on the line and then bring your speed square up to it, and that'll get you lined up perfectly. So we'll get this third one under here. If you have any concave like this one's, you know, rocking. So then we want that to be downward, and then we'll just use gravity to be able to, for that board to straighten itself out. See, I've got my line, so I'm just gonna be lining up the boards with the line and with the end of the board. Whenever you're shooting screws, 2x6 isn't as huge of a deal, but in this construction lumber and stuff, try to at least look at the grain. Don't go into a knot. Don't maybe go straight into a grain where it's going to end up splitting the whole board. One way to keep it from splitting would be to run it in reverse. What you're doing there is melting the wood fibers and then putting it in drive and going in, and that'll allow it not to split at least 90% of the time. And we'll do it for the middle and for the end. So I'm going to go ahead and just set this on the ground. We'll go ahead and start cutting the plywood up, and then we'll be able to connect this and set the whole thing on its side and put the casters right on. Just square up all three of these pieces of plywood together. Let's say 20 inches, perfect. Now I've measured 20 inches up. I'll just use speed square. Got your angles here and pivot point. So for 45, it's that simple. So I've got my line here. I'll slide my pivot point up to it, and then just mark off where my 45 is. Now that we've got our cut line, number one thing, make sure your sawhorse isn't in the way. We know 2 of these are good to go. So we'll pull these 2 off, and then the third one we'll end up cutting out a little piece. Man, I wish I had a plywood storage card I could put this on. Alright, for doing this back section cutout, I'm going to, let's see, measure this up to the 20 inches just so we can match what we've got over there. Alright, now we've got our 20 inches measured. And then to also keep it easy, I'm going to make it 48 because I'd like to have 4 slots, and so we'll just do 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot, coming out to 4 foot, which is 48 inches. So we'll mark that. And then same with right here, we'll get to our 20 inches. All right, now we just get our straight lines and go ahead and cut out the top part. Do not cut out the bottom. I shifted over the sawhorse so I can do this cut, but still if I do this cut and this cut, the whole thing will fall over. So I'm gonna make a little bit of the cut and just stop, kind of move it over, and then I'll plunge it back in and make that cut, and then come over here and finish it off. We'll pull this off, get rid of the sawhorses, and start building from the ground up. And grab 1 full sheet and do the middle slot first. Then we're going to cut this down to 13 inches, 13 1/4. And if anything, go a little wider. Wide really doesn't matter on this, but being shorter, because we'll have these other walls here that we're going to want to be able to screw into it too. I'll probably go 13.5. Just mark the middle. We don't need to put screws in this one as long as we get it in the top plate, which will end up closing this gap, so that'll work out perfectly. But the best way to do that would be to grab one of our straps, set this on so you don't have to hold it, and then just make sure you get it lined up. So I'll measure a foot, a foot, a foot, a foot, and then I actually just have all these spare from a table I just made, 2x6s, and so I'm just gonna throw them, and there's the dividers. That we marked out our 12 inches on center for each of these. You can use what's left of your plywood, cut this down at 5.5, 5.5, and you could use this for 2 pieces. And then what's left of your 2x6s being for these other 2 spots. For me, I happen to have 3 2x6s just left over in the shop that are very nearly 48 inches. So I'll probably do 3 2x6s and then cut a little slice off of this to make the 4th one. So now we're just installing these. This one I just held up, shot up here, and then squared it at the bottom and did 1 toenail on each side. And then I ran 2 more shots down on this side, making sure I went all the way, that I sunk them all the way on that side to make sure it doesn't catch any of our good plywood that we end up putting in. At this point, I don't really worry too much about the bottom. I'll just get the top and then we'll square up the bottom. Make sure you're square. This one is. All right, simple way to toenail with screws is you're just gonna start it normal. I run it in, then I back it out just a hair, bring it up, and then drive it in. So running it in kind of gives it a little shelf to sit on, so when you back it out, you can then turn it down without it sliding off. So you just do one over there. Work on your left hand over here. About if I needed to have some kind of plate across the top just to give it more structure, but I'm not going to. I'll see how it holds up, and if I need to later on add something, I will. But a key point, if you do want to add something, you got to remember on the front we've got a 2x6 or run down the middle, so the piece of plywood that we're going to put in here are going to sit up a little bit higher, which the plan was to be able to easily grab them. So if you are going to add a plate right here, you'll have to add some risers, put the plate on so that it'll still go through. But for now, I'm just gonna fill it up with screws and see how it holds. Down to the last panel. Save the lightest one. All right. And just like the other side, we got these little connecting plates. Set it on. Slide it towards the back. All right. Perfect. Stagger up to these plates. So 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. All right, here it is. We got our spot for the wood, spot for cut plywood, spot for full plywood. So now, if you wanted this just to be your stand, you want to go, don't want to spend the extra money on casters or whatever, because those are like 50, 60 bucks. Then I would have just made these toe kicks, or not toe kicks, but the frame a little bit wider, just to keep it from being able to tip over. And then you can move this into any corner or wall you want. But for now, I am going to add the casters. So I'll tip this over and just shoot the casters and then bring it back up. Do these casters, you have a couple options. One's go that way, one's bring it over this way, or you can lift it up. You could throw some blocks under here and keep lifting it, but to get the gun under there and everything, I think I'd have to lift it a little too high. So I'm going to bring it to this side just because I have these to hold on to. Also, it gives it more structure when it's laying down. Instead of that side, I don't want to mess up this one that has a little less support. Oh, bend at the knees. I got 4 swivels, 1 lock. I probably could have done 2 locks, but and some washers just because I'm going to be running normal screws through here. So I always need some washers, make sure they don't go all the way through. One piece I almost forgot was this middle plywood. Once we flipped it, I want to drive some screws through our base plate just to be able to hold it down because we never screwed it down to the bottom. Lift out the back, right? Ugh. Thank you guys for following along with this build. Here is the lumber plywood cart. It rings in just under $115. So if you're looking for storage for your small woodworking shop, I think this is the perfect option.